think the waiting room is still going. Let me share my screen with you guys. If you don't know who I am, I'm Tim Beasley. I'm the National Scholastic Development and Awards Chair. I've had the great honor of serving in that position for almost 4 years now. And at the new biennium, when we get a new Grand President, that Grand President will be appointing a new chair to the position. So I'm glad I get to take some time in my kind of last semester in this official capacity to talk to you guys about awards, especially as award season's about to come right around the corner. So definitely want to go over some very simple basics of awards and then answer any questions that you guys have. So there's just to preface that, if you can hold your questions till the end or throw them in the chat. And then once we get into that and we start talking about stuff, there are no wrong questions to ask, okay? I'm a huge proponent of the only stupid question is the one that isn't asked. So please feel free when we get to that section, anything and everything is on the table to talk about, okay? So just kind of going straight through. So this session is specifically around chapter awards. So it's not about individual awards or COI or anything like that. If you have questions about that, we can always talk later. But this is specifically about collegiate and alumni awards. So what we're going to talk about today, why should you apply? What are the actual awards that you can apply for? What does that process look like? What are the committees when we're actually judging awards? What are we looking for? When are these things due? And how can you in the future kind of guide your chapter to win next year and beyond? There we go. So why apply? Let's jump right in. So it's moving without me. All right. So why apply? So I think applying for chapter awards, it's not just about winning, right? Now, winning awards is great, but it comes with so much more. And I want to, if I talk to anybody about chapter awards, I'm always talking about kind of the bigger picture, right? What can it really do for your chapter? So one of the biggest things, if you think about CMP and think about it from a strategic standpoint, one of the items in there is create a year in review, right? And that's one way where you can apply awards, is to chronicle what your chapter is doing on a regular basis. If you don't know, CMP, when you submit your professional activities, your community service activities, your alumni events, your fundraising events, it captures all that data and CMP flows directly into your chapter awards. So it's an easy way of seeing what you did either chronologically, or you can adjust it and say, most impact or something like that, right? So it's an easy way to take a quick snapshot of the year and see what you've done so far. It's also a great way, even just applying for awards, to build chapter morale, right? To show your chapter, hey, this is what we did this year. So if you think about it from a year-long perspective, if you're continually updating your awards packets, you can say, like, look at what we've done, right? We've done X number of professional events. We've done X number of service events. We've raised this much money, things like that, to say, now what's our goal for next year? Well, let's do even bigger and better things. So it can help you drive motivation. Think about how you're going to plan for the next year, which is something we'll talk about at the very end of the session, and see how you can beat your own goals, right? Set your goals and beat them. It's also another great way, not just simple fraternal recognition of your achievements by saying, hey, look, we were the best in professional service, or we were the best in scholastic development, or something like that at the regional, professional, provincial, and national level. But it's also a way for you to build campus recognition. I think that's something that our chapters kind of miss out on, to be truly honest with you. I think it's a way, if you were to say, let's say you won a provincial award and you beat out X number of schools and they did X number of events, and you can get all this data from central office, you could go to your school with that information and get into the school's newspaper. You could use this on flyers when you're looking to build corporate sponsorship packets. Hey, we won awards and here's what these awards are and what we had to do to get to them. Here's all the things that we did in order to achieve this accomplishment. And it can help build that brand, not just on school, but in your local community as well. So what awards are actually available? So wall of text here, but essentially the R. Nelson Mitchell Outstanding Collegiate Chapter Award essentially takes pieces of every single award and kind of says this is the best overall chapter. There have been chapters in the past that have won individual, let's say national events. They'll win the most professional activities and someone will win best financial operations, but a different chapter will win the outstanding chapter because when you take all those pieces into play, they had the overall most comprehensive package that year for their brothers. The most improved collegiate chapter, it's a little bit more data driven. So like the outstanding chapter takes data and kind of the quantitative and qualitative data into consideration. What, who was where, how many events did you do? What time were they? What date were they? Things like that. And then you do write-ups on them and say, this is what the impact was. This is what the event focused on. This is how we helped our local community, et cetera, et cetera. The most improved chapter is more number over number increase per year. What's the percentage increase of lead attendance? What's the percentage increase of, let's say, pledge class size, things like that. So a little more data driven, not so much qualitative. Outstanding service takes into account the service initiatives that you have on your campus. I do want to say something about that. For service and for professional activities, I want you to think, if in the future, I want you to think about them not just as activities. What events did we do? But also what initiatives and what kind of driving factors did we have in our chapter? So if you have something that's going on weekly, that's not just one thing you put in, or it's not we had an event every week and maybe it's a little small thing. You did a can drive every week. You can talk about the impact that you had over the entirety of the semester. On the professional activity side, the title's a little misleading. It's not just about activity or events, right? We had a guest speaker come in and talk at our chapter event here. We went and took a tour of a business there. It could also be professional development activities you do in the chapter. So if you, every 2 or 3 weeks, you have a resume review, or you have someone in the chapter do a small case study, or talk to you about what business they're tracking, or what's a hot stock on the market right now. Those can all be incorporated into an item for your awards that talk about the continued development within your chapter. Financial operations is a little bit of a misleading name as well. It really is about the amount of fundraising that you do, and then how do you use those funds. So there are some requirements there in order to apply for the award based on the amount of effort that you put in and the amount of money that you make. Alumni relations is a great award to see what your, and it's kind of hard for every chapter to apply for this, to be honest, because not every chapter has an alumni chapter near them, but you don't have to actually have an established alumni chapter near you to engage with your alumni, especially now doing everything via Zoom, right? And having so many Zoom sessions and WebExes and stuff like that, you can start to branch out and utilize that for additional alumni activity. And then the scholastic development really has to deal with how are you helping your brothers be better in the chapter, right? Or be better at school, increase their GPA, study harder, making sure there's a good work-life balance, things like that. On the alumni chapter side, very similar, but these are alumni chapter focused. And I want to make sure I say that because there are some alumni chapters out there that take this more of a collegiate approach. What is the alumni chapter doing for their collegiate chapters locally? But realistically, these chapter awards are for what they're doing for the local alumni. So the most outstanding alumni, just like the collegiate, it takes pieces of everything else. Most improved is all data driven. What's the increase in engaged alumni? What's the increased in collegiate member activity or interest, things like that. Outstanding service, professional and collegiate relations all have to do very similar things. What are the events you're doing for yourself? The collegiate one, it has to do with how many times are you interacting with local collegiate chapters. Again, similar to the alumni awards, if you have an alumni chapter where maybe there's not a lot of collegiate chapters directly based, maybe it's a drive or something, it can be hard for those. But I think Zoom is going to open up a lot of those opportunities for our chapters to connect more. So what's the actual application process look like? You've done all the hard work. What do you have to do? Well, one of the biggest things that I would advise anybody here that's a president or a VPSA or a VPCO or anybody that's going to be involved in this process is to remind you that it's not just the VPSA's responsibility. The VPSA should be guiding these efforts, spearheading the work, but it is not just on that one person to go in and submit 7 award applications. I want to make that very clear to any VPSAs that are on the call. Take that back to your EC, take that back to your chapter. The weight is not just on your shoulders, okay? Just like our professional, our VP PA or VPCS, they don't do all of the planning. They spearhead initiatives and other people help them. You should also be doing that. The way to make this fun is to get the chapter involved. If you still have more chapter meetings to go before your semester or your quarter is out, I highly advise you taking time during one of your general business meetings and asking questions about events. Get feedback, incorporate quotes. If anybody got an internship based on a professional speaker you had over the last year or something like that, notate that. If you received an award from a community service initiative, you started partnering with a local service company and they gave you some sort of acknowledgement, put that in there. If someone continued to go and serve outside of the chapter and continue to give back, notate that. Those are ways to get kind of information and that qualitative data I was talking about, information and feedback from the chapter to add into your event submissions. But also, again, thinking about the future, finding out if those events actually were impactful. Do we want to continue doing this event? It looks good on paper, but when we actually sat down to talk about it, we thought we could use our time somewhere else. Maybe that's some insight that you drive from it. What I would advise you, if you can't do it during a chapter meeting, if you've got a very tight schedule, if you've got elections coming up or something like that, make a special event out of it. Invite people over. If you can meet locally, invite people over for a pizza night or something like that and have people start working on these awards applications. If you can't meet locally, jump on Zoom and share some funny backgrounds and make it an event of talking about awards and making write-ups and getting input, but also maybe play a video game or play bingo or something like that, right? Make it into a fun night that also has awards incorporated into it. And then one of the huge things is that, if you have the time, incorporate awards into officer transitions, right? What did you do well in your job that allowed us to submit these items? Why do you think, as the outgoing VPPA, we should win the award? Well, I want to do better than you next year, so I'm going to try to take that, incorporate it into my officer transition and into my next semester, and try to do even bigger and better things for the chapter to win even bigger awards. Application basics. So where do you go? So all of the awards, it used to be separate logins, and this system didn't talk to that system and stuff had to be pushed. That's not a thing anymore. You guys have it easy. It's awesome. So all you got to do is log into the hub. So if you're a president, a VPCO, a VPSA, you should already have access. If you're an individual that's looking to get in, maybe become a next VPSA or have something like that, sit down with one of your officers and have them give you access to the hub. And then there's this little green awards, chapter awards module, the little ribbon. So you'll click on that and then it'll break out the awards module and boom, you'll have access to all of your applications. You can go in there and update them and save them as many times as you want. Just be careful not to hit save and submit. You can hit save for later and do all the editing in the world that you want. Again, anything that was put into a CMP item that was submitted into the hub will go into their corresponding award application. Now be careful, just a heads up. If you write really big community service and professional events and alumni events and fundraising events and all that stuff, if you write big CMP items, your outstanding award application might be like 40 pages long. So you might need to go in there and edit it down so it's a more manageable size, because again, it just automatically transfers. Now, who should be involved? Again, logging in and looking at this, VPSA, VPCO, any position holder, and the entire chapter. Why do I say any position holder? Maybe you have the wrong number of attendance numbers, right? Maybe something got messed up. So the VPPA can go back in and check attendance numbers at events, right? Make sure that we have the right number of guests. Make sure we have the right date and time. Move things around a little bit. People can go in and add their tidbits, and then the VPSA is kind of just spearheading everything and will be the one to hit that final save and submit button. A couple other basics, just some kind of rules to live by, if you will. Again, I hammer this home, and I'm sorry if it's boring, but it's not just the VPSA. I want to make sure our VPSAs know that. I've seen chapters just destroy their VPSA because they forgot to do it, and it's like, where were you guys all at? Like, it's not just Tim's job, it's everyone's job, and Tim's supposed to be leading the initiative, right? Or in the terms of where we're at now, where people transition over and now they say it's the new VPSA. So it's someone that had nothing to do with this award application season, but now it's all on their shoulders. That's not fair. That's not what's supposed to happen, okay? Huge, huge tip of advice. Use the current awards and recognition guide. If you go onto the dsp.org website, you go up to the search function, you type awards, literally awards, you'll find the awards guide in there. Okay, and why do I say that? Because you need to, I'm going to skip a couple points ahead, but you need to follow all the guidelines precisely. You need to make sure that you hit all of the requirements, or when you hit submit, your award's going to be thrown out. Okay, I highly advise you to start early and update periodically. Again, as your items go into CMP and they go down into the application, you can immediately go in and edit. Okay, again, with the fact that awards kind of transition into multiple places, be clear and concise, right? You want to go in and edit stuff down so that it makes sense, so that it's clear, so that you go, here was the point, versus fluffy language, right? One of the biggest things that I deal with at the end of the year when we get into award season, I get at least probably a dozen, if not more, emails at the end. Hey, we started our awards application, but we missed the deadline. You know, we thought we hit submit, but we were only hitting save. So please remember to actually hit the submit button. And I highly advise you to hit the submit button at least a day ahead of time. I love the hub. The hub has some problems. And when a bunch of people go on all at once, trying to update and save, submit, doesn't always work out. So do yourself and do your chapter a favor and submit early and take a break, right? Take a breather. Don't wait until the last minute. And above all else, proofread. For the love of everything holy in this world, proofread. Okay. You can take and copy and paste out everything that's in your awards application, give it to someone that has nothing to do with the fraternity. If it doesn't make sense to them, if you've got too many acronyms or too much jargon, go back and edit. If you throw it into Word and there's a bunch of red squigglies and green squigglies and blue squigglies, make some edits, right? Make sure that it looks good, right? The contents can be great. If it's hard to read, it might not go as far as you think it's going to go. So make sure you proofread, okay? So what are some qualification requirements that our collegiate and our alumni chapters have? Well, for our collegiate chapters, essentially, if you go on probation or suspension or anything like that, even for a single day during the fiscal year, you're not going to win any awards. It's just an automatic trigger. If you get into any kind of trouble, even if you have the greatest year ever known to a collegiate chapter, if something happens where there's an allegation or something, you're kind of barred from winning awards. So just remember that, right? And I still highly advise you, if something were to happen and then you guys got back on track, still highly advise you to submit awards and get into that habit and have it part of your kind of year-end process. But just know that, you know, you might be an award-winning chapter on paper at that point, but unfortunately you would be barred from winning awards. For the most outstanding collegiate chapter, not sure if you can hear that motorcycle going by, sorry. But for the most outstanding collegiate chapter, you have to get accredited level, right? So at no point do you have to get excellence or anything to be an award-winning chapter, but you at least have to get the accredited level of CMP. You also have to owe no money to the fraternity. For most improved, you just have to be served no term on probation. For outstanding service, you have to participate in at least one program that's endorsed by the national organization. So if you think about this year, Ronald McDonald House is an easy one. So if you donated any pop tabs, you would automatically qualify for this award if you met all the other, you know, had all the other CMP items completed and submitted award applications. For outstanding professional activities, just have to be on no probation. Pretty simple for that one. Outstanding financial operations, this is where I was saying earlier, it's a little, it has to do more with your fundraising. So the goal here, the kind of red flag that comes up a lot of the times is when a chapter has not fundraised profits greater than $1,000. Okay, so you might raise $1,000 on the nose, but when you submit your information, the events, let's say it cost you $300 to throw on, you technically didn't hit that threshold. Okay, now an interesting tidbit about this financial operations award, this data, what that flag is triggered by is your fundraising report in CMP in the recognition tier. So if you're going to submit your financial operations, you have to submit your fundraising report first, and that data will transfer in, and then it'll do its own math and tell you whether or not you hit that flag or not, right? Have you surpassed that threshold? And of course, can't owe money to the fraternity. For Outstanding Alumni Relations Award, you have to participate in Alumni Day event, and that could be whatever you do. You could put in there that you guys met up with the alumni chapter around 425, which is National Alumni Day coming up this week. You could have a guest speaker come into the chapter on that day. You could go celebrate the chapter's birthday and have a cake at an event. You could do something, whatever it is. One of the CMP items when you submit it, it's as soon as you click that button, it'll transfer into the award and give you the green check mark. For Outstanding Scholastic Development Award, this is a unique modifier that we have, a unique flag. You have to have a VPSA sitting in the VPSA position for the entire academic year. So if you don't, let's say you go through elections and you don't elect a VPSA, even if you guys have the greatest increase in GPA that any chapter's ever seen, you guys studied really hard and you got a bunch of smart kids in and your GPA rose a whole point. Unfortunately, you won't be able to apply for that award because you didn't have a VPSA from start to finish. What about our Alumni Awards? Our Alumni Awards are a little bit different. So for all of the Alumni Awards, there's only 4 of them. The chapters have to be currently franchised. And that's a whole additional process of paying fees and getting insurance and things like that. You also can't serve a term of probation. Again, can't be in trouble, right? And yes, alumni chapters can go on probation. Kind of a unique situation there. But most outstanding alumni chapter, in addition to those 2, can't owe money to the fraternity. Most improved, you had to be franchised last year. So as a brand new alumni chapter, or maybe as a reactivation, maybe a chapter went away for 5 years or something like that, and the local alumni wanted to restart it, you wouldn't be able to apply for most improved, but you absolutely would still be able to apply for outstanding. Outstanding service, similar to our collegiate, you need to participate in one national program. So Ronald McDonald House is a very simple one. And then outstanding professional, you just have to be franchised and not be on probation. So not exactly crazy barriers to entry, right? But there are tons of times every year where we deal with this, where chapters aren't checking to see if they've met every single requirement, and then they'll submit their awards, and maybe it's the only 2 awards they submit and they didn't meet the requirements, and now they're not even eligible. So just make sure when you go in and you submit these, you're taking a look at them. Here's a quick look at what this will look like. So it's a little hard to see. I tried to put it in the red box, but if you'll notice in the red box, one of the items is not clicked. Right? This is the Outstanding Collegiate chapter. So this chapter served time on probation. So even if they had the greatest application known to man, when they hit submit, it will allow you to submit it, but we will stop it on the back end. It'll get flagged and pulled out of consideration. What you want to see is all of the check marks there, nothing pop up, and that does actually turn red. It doesn't on the screen that I pulled, but you'll be able to tell that it doesn't meet all the requirements, and people will still submit. So just be mindful. That's all I'm saying. So what are we looking for when we're looking at awards applications after you've taken the time throughout the year to work hard, do the events, put them together, submit the awards, proofread, and now it's our turn to look at it as alumni and say, okay, who wins? Who did the best job? Well, we absolutely are looking for competitive advantage, right? The quantitative data, as I've said, it's stored in the hub. Anybody has access to it at any point in time, right? You can request information from staff. It's not a secret. But what could be a secret, or what we just don't know, is the qualitative data. What was the impact on the chapter? What was the impact on your local community? What did brothers get jobs or internships? Did people make connections? Did people continue to serve in the organization, if it's a service organization? Did people learn anything, right? Very simple process there, just saying, what did we do? Why did we do it? And what are we going to do again, right? Very simple stuff, but we absolutely want that context. That gives, spice and salt to it all, right? Highlight what makes it unique. How does this differentiate you, not just amongst other fraternal chapters, but how does it differentiate you on the campus, right? Is no one else working with doing blood drives, but you guys do blood drives every 2 months, and you're known as the chapter or the organization on the school campus that does that, and you're spearheading this effort for the university? We want to know about that. Is it something that not a lot of people on your chapter, do events where they open it up to other organizations, but you always do a dance marathon and you open it up to every single organization, and it's the one time of the year where everybody gets together as all business clubs or something like that? We want to know about that. So highlight those things that make it really unique. Discuss the goals and how they were accomplished. So this is something I'll talk a little bit more about in the end when we kind of go back around to setting up your next semester. But in every application, you get kind of the first paragraph is kind of, what was the point? What did you do? Right? What did you accomplish? It's a summary, right? We have all the data for the individual events and the individual initiatives and the fundraising and all that stuff. But what's the purpose? What was the goal here? So talk about that. This is what we set out to accomplish. We wanted to have something that would lead brothers for professional activities. We wanted to get a 20% increase in internships. Boom, we did it. We had a 25% increase in internships, right? Something like that. Let us know what kind of impact these initiatives that you have in your campus had on you, and whether or not you hit your goals and what your goals are for next year, right? We now have the goal of getting 30%, something like that, right? Again, I talked about how it impacts your chapter and how does this relate to the overall goals, strategic goals and advantages of the fraternity as a whole, right? What can you kind of set as the bar for another chapter? What could we take from your awards application and incorporate at the regional level? What could the board look at from your application and say, this is a new service initiative, or this is something we want to focus on, or this is something we want to help push or educate, right? Think about it in those terms. What kind of impact are you having on the national fraternity? And I guarantee you it's going to spur you to do bigger and better events next year. So who actually reviews this stuff? Who's actually looking at it and looking for those things? This is kind of a wall of text, but I wanted to break it down. So for all of our awards applications, only alumni members can actually serve on these committees. So unfortunately, as collegiate members, you can't serve yet, but we highly advise you once you become an alumni, if it's something that you're interested in, we need more people on a national level. We want and need more people to volunteer their time. At the regional level, the RVPs actually find people and put their own committee together. The RVP can serve on the committee, but does not vote. So they can look at awards and hear conversations, but they're not really supposed to be in the conversation, and they definitely do not vote. And they need a minimum of 3. What I've seen in a lot of a lot of regions is they'll kind of have 3 to 5. And I think that's a good number. 7 gets a little crazy unless you're talking about a really big region that has like 10 or 11 or something. But usually 3 to 5 is enough. At the provincial level, the PVP appoints them. Again, the PVP can sit on the committee and view and discuss and things like that, but they do not get to vote. That is specifically a minimum of 5. I think there's only a couple regions I know that do like 7. Most use the 5. And then at the national committee level, this one's a little bit different where as the chair myself, I don't get to do anything. I get appointed by the Grand President, and the Grand President will actually select one person from each province to be a part of the committee. So that way my national committee, I as the chair have a team of 5 that kind of has different perspectives of the entire nation. And then I do have the ability as the national chair to vote. I typically don't. I've only had to vote, I think technically 3 times in the last 3.5 years on anything. I trust my team, and it's usually pretty clear and concise when it gets to our level, who's the winner. But I have had to jump in to break ties and cast a vote just a couple times. So guiding your chapter to that next level, right? So when you're thinking about what does the future look like for your chapter, right? After you've submitted the awards and you've taken that content and you understand kind of where we were, how do we then kind of think about who we want to be? And if your chapter has a goal of winning 1 or more regional, provincial, or national level awards, you need to be strategic about it, right? You need to set that overall goal. What are we trying to accomplish this year, and how are our efforts going to continually put the pieces together for this puzzle that we've set out for ourselves? Okay, I find the easiest way to do this is to take it from that level. We're going to win a national award, and then you plan backwards and you set milestones for yourself, right? All the way back to where you are now. That way you can then start to work piece by piece towards achieving those milestones and reaching that ultimate goal, right? If you just walk into the chapter and say, we want to win national awards, cool. You know, that's probably going to be a hard sell. But if you walk in and you say, we're going to win national awards, and here's how we're going to do it, right? We're going to have 5 events each semester. We're going to have them every 3 weeks. We've already got 2 planned, and we're in the works of getting 2 more planned. And we're going to work on events for next semester, this semester, all of a sudden Mount Everest is a little tiny, anthill, right? You can easily accomplish those. And then the big problem though that most chapters have when they put together those plans is actually sticking to it and executing correctly. So set those expectations and say, okay, here's our goal, here's our map to get to where we want to end. And then you got to hold yourselves accountable. You got to be open and honest with yourselves. You got to talk to each other in terms of, hey, the goal was to do this and you're dropping behind. What do you need to in support wise to get back to where we need to be? How can we move forward? How do we overcome this hurdle? Right? And having those open and honest conversations will allow your chapter to grow and move forward and continually focus on accomplishing your goals. And then again, periodically update, review, and don't forget to actually hit the apply button. It would be a nightmare if you did all this work and you had big CEOs come to your school and then someone hit to submit. Oh my God, that would be a nightmare. I'll go over quickly. I don't want to go over this too much, but this is just a quick example of how to set that goal and how to really tackle winning. Let's say I put here win outstanding community service, right? So if you, in the strategic planning session, right, if you say, what's our goal? Our goal is to win, and how are we going to do it? You can kind of weave a concept of what do we want to accomplish? Well, for community service, we want to have an impact really on our national, or excuse me, our local area. We want to focus on companies that are working. So I went to Cal State Fullerton, right? We want to focus on areas around Fullerton, Brea, this area, this specific geographic area. So you want to start working and coordinating with companies that are in that area, coordinate with other chapters. Think about service event initiatives that could tie into this while still focusing on your goal of helping the local community and hitting all those requirements, right? You got to do a national service event to be able to apply for the award, but how can that tie in to a local event, right? If there are, I don't want to ever say that quantity is better than quality. If you think about it from a CMP's perspective, 6 events are required for community service. I would say, unless those are all like A-level awesome events, 50 people plus or something, right? Huge impacts. Probably 6 is not going to do it, just knowing where our chapters kind of operate. So you might want to set the goal at 8 to 10 community service events. That way, out of that 8 to 10, you're having, let's say 4 or 5 really great events, a couple mediocre events, and a couple like kind of filler events, So how you do that? So let's say you start that in the summer. You put together this idea. We're going to have 8 to 10 events. That means we're going to do 4 to 5 events in the fall, 4 to 5 events in the spring. Okay, so in the fall, you start working on that right away. You set goals, you set donation goals, set attendance goals, set impact goals, whatever that may be, whatever, the initiatives that you're working with. And you start to plan, let's say in the summer, you plan 2 or 3 of those events so that by the time you start your fall term, those events are already done. And while you're starting those events and you're going through and starting to actually execute those events, you're planning out the rest of your semester. So it takes a lot of pressure off you, it takes pressure off your chapter, and allows you to focus on the actual initiatives, right? By the end of your term, when you're about to, let's say, if you do semester terms and you do 1 semester per role, right? As that VPCS in this situation is about to kind of head out and the new person's about to be elected, that VPCS should try to think ahead and try to plan one of those events for the spring. That takes a lot of pressure off the incoming VPCS because they have typically a shorter amount of time to plan between the fall and the spring, right? So now the spring, the goal is to plan and execute 4 or 5 events, but one of them's already done. So now you set new attendance goals, you set new donation goals, you start to build, by the time you come back from a break, maybe you have 1 or 2 events completed, you execute the rest, you complete them, now you've got your 8 to 10 events done, you can submit awards, but that VPCS should not be done. They should start thinking about next year too. Let's plan a service event for the summer to keep this going, or maybe one for the summer and one for the fall. So when the new VPCS comes in, work's already done, right? They get to kind of focus on new initiatives and get to incorporate what the previous VPCS has already accomplished. Okay. At the end of the year though, you definitely, again, I've said this ad nauseum, you want to involve your chapter, right? What did they get out of this? What kind of feedback can they give you? What kind of information can they provide to the new person to set new additional goals, right? Ask for individual impact stories. It's huge. I can't tell you, as someone who reviews these, when I hear about people, let's say for service, when they continue on with an organization and they continue giving of their time, that's huge. That's something that you could be with for the next 10 years, you know, and think about how much impact you could have there just because your chapter gave you an opportunity to go be a part of something. And then of course, you know, submit before the due date. Always, please, always submit before the due date. I'm going to skip over this. This is just breaking that down a little bit more. What I do want to talk about here though, is kind of going back to CMP and how this kind of breaks down into and funnels into your awards, right? I'm a huge proponent of kind of divide and conquer. So if you think about it in terms of a chain of custody, if you want to think about it that way from cop speak, right? So when you guys are sitting down, you're saying, okay, we're going to plan events, right? Your VPCO who handles your CMP should be talking to the executive committee and helping plan out what needs to be done. Okay, we need to do 4 to 5 events, you guys. Here's how we're going to do it, right? Then the VPCS or VPSA or whoever it is, right? BPPA starts planning those events. When that event comes up, the event holder will write up a quick little write-up. We had Mark Cuban come to our campus to talk to us about entrepreneurship and leading a company in America today. Boom. We had 150 people. It happened on Tuesday the 10th at 4 p.m. in this building. There were this many advisors there. There were this many faculty there, yada, 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 right? All the data. That person should write that up and send it to the VPSA. The VPSA should then smooth that out and make it sound a little bit better, make it flow with and connect back to the original strategic goals that you set down. They submit it to the VPCO. That person puts it in the hub. What does the hub do? The hub automatically transfers it to your application. Now the work of the VPSA was done before it even went into the hub. So the VPSA already knows it's going to look good in the application because I made it look good before we even touched, you know, the hub, right? At the end of the year, the VPSA can go in and kind of just massage things, make things look a little bit better, maybe write some language to connect event to event, right? And then hit that final submit button. But it's not the VPSA going in at the very end of the year and going, wait, what did we do back in February? Like, what did we do back in November? Like, oh my God, okay, who was there? What was the point of the event? If you take the time now, it's less work to do later. We are almost done. Last slide. Where can you access some resources? So the biggest one for any incoming VPSA, there is an awards packet that talks about a lot of this stuff. Okay, the National Awards and Recognition Guide literally breaks down every step of the application, all the requirements, and that's not just for chapter applications, chapter awards, that's for individual awards, for resources that you can give out to alumni and to members of your university and to guest speakers. All that stuff is available in the recognition guide. I also highly advise you to use your regional and provincial chairs. They're there for a reason. Really, when you think about your DDs, your RVPs, and then other resources like chairs and staff and stuff like that, they're not talking to people on a regular basis like a DD would or something like that. So if you have questions about awards, reach out to them. They're probably really excited to talk to you about it. And then feel free, I know I'm only the awards chair for a couple more months, but feel free to reach out to me for anything. awardschair@dsp.org goes directly to my personal email. I'll respond to you via a Gmail account that I've created, but feel free to ask any questions. Like I said, I can talk about this stuff all day long. I really enjoy it. I've enjoyed my time as the chair. So if you've got questions, I'd love to chat with you about them. You know, we'll open it up to Q&A here in a second, but if your chapter has questions, if you bring this back, or if you're having issues in the application process, let me know. If you're having actual technical issues, awards or hub at DSP can actually help you with that, because I don't get access to the back end. I can't help with the tech stuff, but the context and the why behind the what, I can help with that kind of stuff. And I am more than willing to do so. So I want to say thank you for your time. I'll open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing now. And if anybody has questions about anything awards related, feel free to ask away. And I'll check the chat to see if anybody threw anything in there. I think it's just names. Oh, So where is the awards and recognition guide located? So it's actually on the DSP website. So I would advise you the easiest way to look for it. You can go into the collegiate resources, go to the VPSA, click around. Easiest way is if you go to the DSP website and then go to the search function at the top and just type in awards. It'll be like the second thing down. Is there somewhere we can look over this presentation later? We can make it available. And I know this is being recorded and this will be uploaded to the webinar listings. So you can even hear my wonderful, beautiful voice again if you want to, but we'll make it available for sure. Advice on getting EC to contribute to awards application when it's not a norm in your chapter. Yeah, I would make it a fun event, right? Incorporate it into something else. So if you don't think your EC's really wanting to carve out time specifically for it, maybe you guys get together and play Among Us or something like that, right? You play a video game and then you chat, and then you play another level and then you chat, or maybe you do a Kahoot and you chat, or you get together. It doesn't have to be everybody, right? If you don't think you're going to get the full buy-in, but you got a couple people that are willing to help, then you can start it up and really, in the nicest way of saying it, like kind of boast about it, right? Yeah, we got together, 3 of us got together and look what we were able to do. Oh yeah, you missed out on it. But I mean, if you want to do it next time, we'll have you next time, right? Make it into something that people want to go to versus something people have to go to or that they view as a chore or something like that. Any other questions? Anybody want to open up their mic and ask a question? You feel free to do so.
I have a question.
Hit me with it.
I was wondering, what's the probability of smaller chapters winning national awards?
What's the probability of smaller chapters winning national awards? Good. I mean, honestly, it's better. Bigger doesn't mean better, right? Honestly, sometimes when chapters get too big, they don't do award-worthy work. they slack off and they think they've got it all set. I highly advise every chapter to submit as many awards as possible every year, without fault. We have regions that don't have winners. I can't tell you why, just other than people didn't apply. So you might be looking at what you've done and go, I don't think we're gonna win. Apply. You might. And not just in a pity sake of like nobody applied, but you might beat someone out because you wrote a better award, right? Maybe they did more events, but maybe your events had a bigger impact because you put the time and the effort in to tell us why those events meant something to you. So I highly advise you, even if you're a small chapter, invest the time because it'll come back around and have positive benefits for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course. Any other questions, anybody? You can throw them in the chat if you don't want to chat. If not, you can feel free to, if you don't want to talk today, if you don't want to mull some stuff over and think about it, shoot me an email, awardschair@dsp.org. I'll answer any question that comes in. If no one else has any questions, again, I want to thank you for your time and your consideration tonight, and I wish you all the best of luck, and hopefully I'll be seeing your names again when we come up on national awards,
Thank you.
Thank you.